On today's show, just when you thought things were bad for the Cavs, well, they got a little bit worse on Monday. We're going to talk about the injuries to DeAndre Hunter and Evan Mobley on this bonus Monday edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen, or maybe in this case, second or even third listen of the day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching this show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Cavs dropped game one of the Eastern Conference semifinals yesterday to the Indiana Pacers, 121-112. Coming out of that game, I think it was really easy to feel, okay, the Cavs missed a lot of shots and the Pacers made a lot of shots. And those things are true. The Pacers shot above their heads. The Cavs shot well below what they would have expected to, given the quality of shot that they created. It was easy to look at that and say, okay, you know what? The Cavs are going to be fine. This is an outlier performance. If they play just their style of basketball, they'll be okay. And then the Cavs had a practice at Cleveland Clinic Courts in Independence early this afternoon. And I'm recording this right now. It is 3:38 Monday afternoon. So if news breaks after this, or if there are further updates on the things that I'm about to talk about after this, I'm not talking about them because I don't have them as of right now. This podcast is going to be up early, or I guess early evening, late afternoon on Monday. But the big news that came out of Kenny Atkinson's media availability, because he spoke, Sam Merrill spoke, and Jared Allen spoke at practice. The big thing that came out of it was the injury updates that we got from Kenny Atkinson. DeAndre Hunter dislocated his thumb in game one, and he will be listed as questionable. Evan Mobley twisted or sprained his, I believe, left ankle. He will be listed as questionable. Now, Atkinson, and I'm going to play the full 3-minute soundbite of him in a second here, because I think it's important. And rather than me reading the full quote, because I think if you listen to the show, you've understood, like when I think something is important, I will read the quote verbatim from whoever says it. But I think it's important to listen to this one rather than me read a 3-minute quote. But he also then did say the word doubtful. Questionable and doubtful are two very different things in the NBA's definition of that. Questionable is supposed to be like a 50-50 type thing. Doubtful is supposed to be like, there's like a 10% chance he plays. So he mentioned doubtful for both of those guys, which is obviously a really bad sign heading into what is a must-win game two. The Cavs can't afford to go down 0-2 to the Pacers at home and then have to go to Indy and keep their season alive. So this is obviously an incredibly important game. And the feeling after practice on Monday, and who knows what the feeling is after shoot around Tuesday morning will be, but the feeling after practice on Monday is that DeAndre Hunter and Evan Mobley are not going to be available for the Cavs. Now, Darius Garland, it was a light practice for the Cavs. Like, it was a film and some shooting and a walkthrough. So it wasn't anything that like nobody could go through. But Darius Garland, no real update there because it was a light day. Like, it's not something that he was able to test out that toe. I don't have further information as of right now as to whether or not he will be available on Tuesday in game two. I think that's a really important thing. But the theme of the day at practice was the physicality in which game one was played. And I thought it was an extremely physical game. I did. I thought it went for the most part both ways. I thought both teams benefited from some missed calls. I thought the Cavs probably got the short end of that stick when you consider a couple of the missed calls that there were. And the one that we'll talk about in a second, and I will show you in a second, wasn't necessarily one that I caught live. And I don't necessarily have a huge issue with this one not being called on it for Evan Mobley. The DeAndre Hunter one that Kenny Atkinson, you will hear him talk about in depth here in a second. I thought was an egregious no call. The fact that it was reviewed and they said, well, Mathurin touched the ball, so he can essentially do whatever else he wants to DeAndre Hunter, I thought was ridiculous. And the play Jarrett Allen where he dunked on Miles Turner and took a two-hand shove in the chest and fell on his back pretty hard. And Allen said that he's okay. It was a fall that he, in the moment, probably a little worse than it actually was, but there's no ill effects that he's feeling a day later from that fall. But I thought both of those things were two pretty bad missed calls that didn't go in the Cavs' favor. And of course, there were missed calls that went in the Cavs' favor too throughout this game. So that's what Kenny Atkinson talked about. And this year, the Cavs won 64 games, right? They swept the first round of the postseason. Kenny Atkinson has not had very many things to be upset about. It's hard to, as a coach, publicly be upset when speaking to the media when you are the head coach of a 64-win team. Very difficult to do. And if you do that, oftentimes it can kind of be seen as phony just because you have a great team. What are you mad about? Type of thing. So Kenny was not often mad. I cannot think of very many instances this year in dealing with Atkinson where he was anything other than delightful, truthfully. This was different on Monday at the practice facility. This was, I think, the most upset I had seen Kenny, the most ticked off I had seen Kenny this entire year. I think that organizationally, there is a real, I think the Cavs organizationally are pretty upset with how things went, both in terms of how they played on Sunday and with how the game was officiated. I think that comes through in what Kenny had to say. I think that the fact that two players for the Cavs now are probably going to miss time because of injuries suffered as a result of calls that they believe should have been made. And obviously, like if they get those foul calls, it doesn't change the injury. But if the tone of the game is set a little bit differently, do those things happen? I don't know. I kind of think that's the larger point. But I do want to play because, as I mentioned, when something's important, I'll read the quote from Kenny or Donovan or whoever says it. But I think it's important to listen to everything that Kenny has to say here. It's about 3 minutes. If you're watching on YouTube, I will also show some of the plays that Kenny is talking about in this 3-minute rant, if you will. But Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com is the one that asked this question. I don't have the question included, but he essentially asked, how did the team come out of Sunday's game in terms of injuries? It's very physical. Guys were, hurting in the locker room at points. It seemed like that was the basis of the question. And here's what Kenny Atkinson had to say.
So let me address that because there's some context around that. And I just want to kind of the lead up to this is kind of all what I said. I mean, Indiana deserved that. They're a more physical team. I will say there were two plays in that game that, how should I say, and again, utmost respect for Indiana and Rick and how they coach, and I don't think they were dirty plays, but I think it passed the line of physicality. That line we've kind of been talking about, where it became excessive. So number one was the non-call on DeAndre's layup, which I don't know that everyone in the world just look at that play and they reviewed it, and I'm just like in shock. I don't know, and I guess I got to know the rules better. So maybe I don't know the rules. I felt he got absolutely obliterated and dislocated his thumb, so he'll be questionable. And then Evan, around the same time, I can't remember if it's before or after, Evan Turner contests his 2-point shot, comes clearly under him, right? And shooters need space to land, and is pushed off balance in kind of our opinion, and tweaks his ankle pretty bad. I think you guys saw him limping the rest of the game, when there was a big push to get him out. He wanted to stay in. He'll be questionable, and these aren't drummed up. This is so unfortunate for us. And again, I don't think this is on Indiana. have so much respect for how they play. They're hard playing dudes. Miles Turner's hard playing dude. But the fact of the matter, I think that's on the referees, and if the calls, weren't, maybe they were missed calls, or maybe I'm misinterpreting the rules. But I have a problem when we got two of our best players, doubtful for tomorrow's game. Just I don't. It's hard for me to get my head around that when there were no calls on either one. So I haven't talked about referees all year, and I think the referees in this league are phenomenal, and they do a great job. And that was a darn good crew last night. Ton of respect for those guys, but for some reason, it bothers me that we're dealing with this. It shouldn't, at least there should be some repercussions in terms of making the call.
So I didn't think that the Mobley play was one that, watching live, I didn't realize it. Like, I noticed Evan was at that point not moving all that well. I didn't realize that as that shot went down, that he also landed on Miles Turner's foot. I don't think there was any ill intent by Miles Turner there. I thought that if there's an egregious play that involved Miles Turner in game one, it was the dunk that Jared Allen had over him, where he shoved Jared Allen in the chest while he was airborne and Allen ended up on his back. I don't have an issue with that not being called. Like, that just kind of happens near the basket. The other play with DeAndre Hunter, that's the one that I still don't understand, is sitting here talking about this 18 hours later. I still don't get how that wasn't called a foul. Yes, Benedict Mathurin makes a lot of contact with the basketball, but he made a lot of contact in a lot of other places with DeAndre Hunter. And it was not, to me, a clean block when you put your offhand through somebody's chest, because DeAndre Hunter didn't hit the ground because of the force Benedict Mathurin used on the basketball. He hit the ground because he was shoved to the ground with his other arm. And that, to me, was the thing that got ignored. And that, I think, is what the Cavs are most upset about, is that they possibly, potentially, and it sounds like they will, be losing two very important players for what is the most important game that they've had so far this season, down 1-0 at home against the Indiana Pacers. For all intents and purposes, something I think is a must-win game. They're going to be without two of their 5 best players, maybe 3 of their 5 best players. If Darius Garland doesn't play, that's a really difficult spot to be in for the Cavs. And I think that the Cavs are very frustrated that that's the reality that they're living in. And I do think that they're frustrated with how this game was called. I also think that there are some other things to take away from some of this practice availability that I'll get into here. But overall, I think that Kenny Atkinson, and I understand that he's not somebody that raises his voice, but if you listen to the words that he said, I felt, quote, I felt he got absolutely obliterated and dislocated his thumb. That, to me, Kenny doesn't speak like that normally. Like, he doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't, his face doesn't get all red. He doesn't do those things. But I think that the language that he used when he said, that's the line we've kind of been talking about where it became excessive. The language that he used, I think, said more about what the message he was trying to get across was, rather than the tone of voice that he was using to do so. The Cavs are now in a tough spot because of this. There's no debating that at all. I think there's one way out of it for him, maybe 2. We'll talk about that briefly next, right here on Locked On Cavs. This episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. The world has made a lot of progress when it comes to mental health, but there's still a long way to go. Too many people still avoid therapy because they're afraid of being judged. But the truth is, taking care of your mental health should be just as normal as going to the gym or eating healthy. This Mental Health Awareness Month, let's normalize getting help and encouraging everyone to prioritize their well-being, because when people feel supported, families, workplaces, and entire communities are better off because of it. It's not just about dealing with the big problems that you might have. It's about maintaining your mental wellness, just like you do with your physical health, right? You don't only go to the gym when something's wrong. You go to the gym to be proactive. Therapy should be something that you look at in the same way. And with BetterHelp, getting started is easier than ever because it's fully online, has a network of over 30,000 licensed therapists, and you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. We're all better with help. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDON NBA to get 10% off your first month. Today's show also brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between online shopping, entertainment, all that other fun stuff you want to do, it can be easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, because they'll be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. You can stop just managing your money and you can start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for long-term goals. Managing money with your partner smoother than ever as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. So the Cavs are up against it in game 2. This is a must-win game. Their season's not over if they lose it, but it's hard for me to start to envision roadmaps, considering how beat up this team is right now, out of the second round of the playoffs without some of their key players if they don't win game 2. Now, how do they win game 2? And I will dive into this in much greater detail in tomorrow's full edition of Locked On Cavs. That'll hit your podcast feeds first thing in the morning. It'll be on YouTube at 7:15, just like it is every single day for your first listen. But step one, I think, is having a healthy Darius Garland. I think having a healthy Darius Garland in a game that they might not have DeAndre Hunter, they might not have Evan Mobley, would go a very long way for the Cavs. I think, one, he would probably provide them a bit of an emotional boost, because it's easy for this team, I think, to look around and see Evan Mobley go down, see DeAndre Hunter go down, see some other guys dealing with some other things, and kind of lose the spirit a little bit. But if Darius comes back, and that doesn't make up for everything that DeAndre and Evan provide, certainly it's much, much, much different in terms of the actual basketball stuff. The skill sets could not be more opposite, but it can provide a bit of a spiritual lift. It can provide a bit of an emotional lift to this team. And I do wonder if that's something that they need. Obviously, they need Darius's offense. They need his playmaking. They need his shooting. They need him to be able to do a lot of the things that he's really, really good at, because he's just that. He's really, really good. But I also think that they need his leadership in this type of moment. I think that they need him to go out and be an all-star, because that's what all-stars do. They step up for the team when the team really needs it. And I think that the team really, really needs Darius Garland right now. I don't know his status as I record this. We'll probably find out more Tuesday morning at shoot around whether or not he's going to be able to give it a go. But I do think that this is a situation where the Cavs really need him, and we can certainly put to rest the Cavs are better without Darius Garland. Like, that was dumb when it was happening, and it's even dumber now. And then the other thing, and this is probably the thing I will dive very deep into tomorrow, the Cavs need Donovan Mitchell to be a superstar. Donovan Mitchell is probably going to finish first team All-NBA. He is probably going to finish 5th on MVP ballots this year. He had a phenomenal season. Since the Cavs acquired him, he has been, when healthy, a top 10 player in basketball. You cannot argue that. That's what Donovan Mitchell has been. That's what he's meant to the Cavs. You trade for Donovan Mitchell when you're the Cavs, not just because of what he can do to elevate your franchise, take you from a team that won 44 games and had a bright future to a team that won 64 games a couple of years later and is a true championship contender. This stuff does not happen without Donovan Mitchell. You also trade for Donovan Mitchell because Donovan Mitchell can go be a superstar when you need him to be a superstar the most. I think that moment is right now. I didn't expect that moment to be in the conference semifinals against the Indiana Pacers. I thought we would be having this conversation maybe like game 5 in the conference finals with the series tied 2-2 and the Cavs needing Donovan to go for 45 at home against Boston. That's when I kind of had this conversation penciled in. But I think we're there right now. I think Tuesday's game, the most important player in this game is Donovan Mitchell, and it's by a wide margin. If Donovan goes out and has a good game, The Cavs can find a way to win. I have no doubt about that because he is the best player in the series by a significant margin, in my opinion. And he is the one that is capable of carrying his team to a win in a way that I don't think anyone else on either team is capable of doing. The Cavs probably are going to need him to do that in game 2 tomorrow. Superstars get paid like superstars to do superstars things. Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. And in game 2 against the Pacers, I really think that Donovan Mitchell needs to go out and do superstar things because that's where the Cavs are at right now. When your back is against the wall, how do you react? The Cavs, when they've dealt with adversity, which admittedly has not been much this year, they've always found a way to overcome it. They've always found a way to push back and be great through it. They need Donovan Mitchell to do just that in game 2 on Tuesday night. Thank you for making this bonus edition of Locked on Cavs a listen today. I don't know if it's first, second, third, fifth. I don't know what you've been listening to today, but I know this is coming at an unusual time, but thank you for giving this a listen. Thank you for watching on YouTube. If you're listening, make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, be a friend, tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. I will be back first thing tomorrow morning, going more in depth about game 2 for the Cleveland Cavaliers.